The third generation of domineering and irritable army times clear-headed and rational female lawyer, male impurity, male early stage is very dog, very scumbag, true prodigal son turns back to right, reality-oriented, the content is purely fictional. There is no negative orientation. Jiang Wan found Lu Huaiqi for money. She thought they were just a simple physical transaction, each taking their own needs, but the man clearly didn't intend to let her go so easily. At first, Lu Huaiqi only regarded Jiang Wan as a plaything, like many other women, but gradually realized that he couldn't control his heart well. He would care about her and everything about her. Jiang Wan thought that her illicit relationship with Lu Huaiqi would eventually come to an end. She knew that they were separated by class and social status, and no matter what, they could not have any good results, but she finally realized that she had thought too simply. Chapter 1. Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Wan lowered her head and walked behind manager Lu. She was wearing a black tight-fitting hip-wrap dress and a pair of 10-centimeter silver high heels on her feet, both of which were just bought yesterday. She is not used to wearing such high heels and walks a bit stumbling. Compared to her unsteady steps, her heart is even more uneasy. She is very afraid that she won't get what she wants today. Manager Lu stopped at the entrance of a private room. Be clever when you enter. The ancestor inside is one of the founding members of the country, so you can't afford to provoke him. You have taken care of him today, and money cannot be without you. Jiang Wan whispered a greeting. Manager Lu showed her the photo, and as soon as she entered the door, she recognized the man, Lu Huaiqi. He was holding an unlit cigarette in his mouth, wearing a red and green shirt, not tacky, with a different kind of ruffian aura, sitting with a few young gentlemen rolling dice cups. Under the ambiguous and dim lighting of the private room, one can still see his three-dimensional and handsome facial features. Who called her Nyo? A man asked. Lu Huaiqi only looked up at Jiang Wan, and then his attention fell back on the dice cup in his hand. Come here, he said. Jiang Wan lowered her eyes and came to his side. Can you light a cigarette? Lu Huaiqi handed her a lighter. Jiang Wan took it, opened the lid, wiped it twice before catching fire, and with less proficiency, approached him and lit the cigarette in his mouth. The two were so close that Jiang Wan could even feel the heat emanating from his body. He pulled Jiang Wan into his arms and let her sit on his lap. The vicissitudes of smoke and the scent of male hormones intertwined like a fine web, enveloping Jiang Wan, causing her heart rate to suddenly increase. Have you ever played dice? Jiang Wan shook her head. Lu Huaiqi held a cigarette butt in one hand and placed her hand on the dice cup in the other. Grab it, he said. Jiang Wan's hands trembled slightly, and a thin layer of sweat broke out from her palms, both nervous and panicked. Lu Huaiqi grabbed her wrist and shook her hand in the air a few times. His palm was very large, with a thin cocoon on it touching the skin on her wrist, like a delicate small scraper gently scraping the back of her hand, causing her heartbeat to increase a bit. After the dice cup was set, the man with an inch head across from him called out 4 sixes. Lu Huaiqi took a puff of smoke and said to her, open it up and take a look. Jiang Wan gently opened her mouth and glanced at the dice inside. What is it? Asked Lu Huaiqi. Jiang Wan said truthfully, 5 sixes. The inch-headed man shouted open, and Jiang Wan watched as the other two men opened, learning to lift the lid of the dice cup. 5 sixes. And neither of the other two had 6 in their dice cups. The man laughed and scolded, who is serious about boasting. Lu Huaiqi pointed to a glass of wine on the table and said, whoever calls, whoever drinks. Watching the man who called out finish his drink, Lu Huaiqi picked up Jiang Wan horizontally. He hugged easily and effortlessly. Jiang Wan was lifted up like this for the first time, and her limbs were a bit stiff. She hesitated for a moment and placed her arms on his broad and powerful shoulders. Let's finish playing here today, said Lu Huaiqi to several men after speaking. he carried her out of the private room and went to a resting room, placing her on the big bed. The layout of the room is the same as that of the hotel, with a crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. The ambiguous and hazy light hit Jiang Wan's face, illuminating her facial features. She has a standard oval face, with smooth and soft facial lines, willow leaf eyes, and a raised tail, but without any seductive demeanor. Instead, it is a cold and transparent appearance, like a lotus growing vertically in the mud, washing clear ripples without being seductive. After looking at her for a while, Lu Huaiqi said, "This dress doesn't fit you, take it off." Jiang Wan hesitated for 2 seconds and obediently took off her skirt, revealing the white lace lingerie and underwear inside. Her slender and pure white legs were crossed, with no excess fat on her waist and abdomen. The waistcoat line was faintly visible, and her round breasts were perfectly wrapped, with delicate and prominent collarbones. Lu Huaiqi felt his lower abdomen heat up and cursed, "Damn it, who taught you how to dress like this? No one teaches." Lu Huaiqi lit another cigarette and asked, "Do you know how to serve people?" Jiang Wan nodded, knelt on the bed, bent down, and actively untied his belt buckle. From Lu Huaiqi's perspective, he happened to see the deep groove in front of her chest, and the hot and dry air in her lower abdomen ignited. "You his mother." Jiang Wan Song opened him up, looked up, thinking he was not satisfied. "What are you looking at? Keep going." She lowered her head again, trying her best to please. Lu Huaiqi looked at her smooth black hair and turned over, pressing her under him. He asked her, "Have you ever done it before?" As the night deepened, the scent of desire filled the room. Lu Huaiqi's voice was deep and hoarse, and he leaned in Jiang Wan's ear and said, "Call it out." Jiang Wan responded, but still couldn't let go, moaning and panting like a newborn kitten. After lingering, Lu Huaiqi went to take a shower, and when he came out, he was only wrapped in a towel. There were some sparkling water droplets remaining on his chest with clear grooves, and his abdominal muscles were full but not bloated. The V-shaped mermaid line was partially blocked by a bath towel, which sparked imagination. Jiang Wan saw many scars, big and small, on his body, and a prominent gunshot wound on his left chest, almost brushing against his heart. She couldn't imagine how dangerous it would be to be shot in that position. Lu Huaiqi looked at the girl lying limp on the bed like water, with unclear emotions in his eyes. Jiang Wanxiang struggled to get up and walked into the bathroom with trembling legs. When she came out, Lu Huaiqi leaned against the bed and smoked. He waved at her and said, "Come here." Jiang Wan got into bed, crawled into his arms, and rested her head on his arm. "What's your name?" he asked. "Jiang Wan." "How old is it?" 21. Lu Huaiqi reached out and dusted the ashtray by the bedside, asking, "What do you want money for?" "Treat my dad's illness," Jiang Wan said. "How much do you want?" "You look at it." Lu Huaiqi held her round in one hand, thought for a while, smiled and scolded. "You are the most excellent one I have ever seen." After speaking, he threw a card on her chest and said, "There's 50,000 inside." Jiang Wan placed the card by the bed and said, "Thank you." The smell of tobacco gradually overshadowed the musky scent in the air, and the light emitted by the crystal chandelier was ambiguous and hazy. Lu Huaiqi stroked Jiang Wan's hair and smoked while squinting his eyes. He used to never leave anyone after playing, but today this woman unexpectedly makes him want to stay warm all night. His big hand caressed her cheeks, his dark and deep eyes fixed on Jiang Wan's eyes. The shape of these eyes is narrow and upward, which should theoretically contain infinite temptation and spring love, but what he sees is not so. Her eyes seem to hold a clear and bottomless stream, exuding calmness and clarity, without any impurities. Lu Huaiqi is very clear that this is a woman with a very clear purpose. Come please him and take his money. He lifted her chin with his hand and kissed her. When Lu Huaiqi saw Jiang Wan again, she was cashing out at a newly opened bar. She was wearing a bar uniform, not a formal outfit, but a black and white maid outfit that didn't fit her cold and indifferent face. She stands very straight, with a beautiful posture, and her checkout movements are sharp and efficient, with a unique beauty. Several ill-intentioned men had already set their sights on her early on, and while she was checking out, they would move around with her, causing her to quietly dodge. Seeing Lu Huaiqi staring at Jiang Wan, the bar manager introduced, "She's a student at a university, coming to work to earn some living expenses." Lu Huaiqi let out a his emotions unclear in his eyes. "This girl looks good, works in an orderly and steady manner. I heard she is studying law, so no wonder she is so serious." Lu Huaiqi walked over. "Check out." Jiang Wan's body stiffened when she heard the familiar voice, and then quickly returned to normal, with a standard smile on her lips. "Hello, the total consumption is 6,784 yuan. Lu Huaiqi paid and said to her, "Leave a phone number." Jiang Wan knew that Lu Huaiqi had a special identity and had already received the money. She didn't want to have too much involvement with him anymore, so she refused, "Sorry sir, it's not very convenient." Lu Huaiqi didn't expect her to have such a great time with her ruthless hand. He picked up the pen from the cashier, lowered his head, and pulled at her collar with one hand, writing a string of numbers on the white part. "Next time you're short of money, come find me." Jiang Wan didn't answer him, but instead showed a formatted smile, which didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome to visit again." When Jiang Wan finished work, it was already early morning. She was a senior student and had already moved out of school for the convenience of working. She has to intern at a law firm during the day, and can only work part-time at places like bars that open at night. Saturdays and Sundays are slightly better, with time to earn money throughout the day. She returned to the rental house exhausted, which was a single room she rented near the school, covering more than 10 square meters. There is a bed inside, a bathroom, and a table by the window filled with professional books and Buddhist scriptures. She took off her work clothes and looked at the string of black numbers on it, feeling a bit ridiculous. Not laughing at him, but at herself. What we once believed in will never be worth the blow of reality. She also sold her body for money, knowingly breaking the law. She took a basin of water and threw the maid into it, intending to wash it and hang it, so that it would be dry by tomorrow night. She thought that as she was about to take action, her phone vibrated. Looking at the caller ID on the screen, she felt as if a tall building had collapsed in her heart. When going out, the most frightening thing is the phone call at home in the middle of the night. After she connected, Li Fen's panicked voice came out from inside. "Xiao Wan, your father's condition has worsened and he's in the intensive care unit. When will you be able to come back? Mom is afraid you won't see him for the last time, Xiao Wan." "Mom, don't worry, do you still have money? Last time you brought 50,000, there was only 10,000 left. The intensive care unit costs 5,000 per day. Mom, you actively cooperate with the doctor's treatment. I'll come up with a solution regarding the money. Xiao Wan, tell Mom, where did the last 50,000 come from? It's the school's scholarship and poverty allowance. Xiao Wan, don't lie to Mom. Don't worry." After hanging up the phone, Jiang Wan almost ran to the bathroom and picked up her work clothes soaked in water. Fortunately, although the handwriting on it is a bit blurry, the numbers can still be recognized. She carried her clothes to the table and picked up a pen and paper to copy down the phone number. Chapter 2. Once again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Lu Huaiqi took Jiang Wan to a 5-star hotel in Chang'an district, next to the Olympic Park and the Bird's Nest. The two were taken by the waiter to the presidential suite on the 20th floor. There are 4 men in the room, playing mahjong around an automatic mahjong machine. "Brother Lu, is this your new girlfriend?" a man asked with a smile. "What's wrong?" Lu Huaiqi asked in reverse. The man smiled and said, "Let her give it a rub later." Lu Huaiqi walked up to the mahjong table and kicked the talking man with his toes, urging him, get out of the way." The man stood up from the chair, and Lu Huaiqi sat down on it, patting his thigh and gesturing for Jiang Wan to sit on it. Jiang Wan folded her skirt and sat sideways on his lap. Lu Huaiqi wrapped her arm around her and pressed his chest against her thin shoulder, whispering, "Can you play mahjong?" The masculine aura that rushed towards Jiang Wan's face made her cheeks feel a bit hot. She pressed her heart and said, "It will be a little bit. See which one should be released." Jiang Wan first looked at the cards standing in front of the table, then at the cards that had already been played in the field, and then pointed to a 90,000 card. Lu Huaiqi raised his hand and shot out. After playing a round of cards, Lu Huaiqi's previous family issued a fortune card, and he said to Jiang Wan, "Touch one." Jiang Wan leaned forward, reached out and touched a card, then opened it. Hidden bar Lu Huaiqi showed 4 identical, 3 lines, and said to her, "Touch a barber." Jiang Wan reached out and touched another one, and when she lifted it up to look at it, she was also somewhat shocked. Blooming on the bar Lu Huaiqi wrung her waist with a smile, "Your his mother luck is really mysterious, just a few more laps." Next, she played 5 more laps, won 4 laps, played 3 laps on her own, and played 1 lap on her own. Lu Huaiqi happily kissed her twice on the face. After everyone in the room left, he carefully observed her. She was wearing the white long dress he had prepared for her, with a pair of flat-sole shoes on her feet and no makeup. Her nose bridge is very straight, but not very high on the ground. The mountain roots are gentle, and both softness and 3-dimensional coexist. Her lips are thin, but the shape is very beautiful. Meanwhile, Jiang Wan was also watching Lu Huaiqi. At first glance, she knew that whether in life or in bed, he would only like pure, obedient, and gentle women. Jiang Wan understood the principle of catering to her preferences very well. She stared straight at Lu Huaiqi with a pair of willow leaf-shaped eyes, and a gentle smile rose from the corner of her lips. Lu Huaiqi knew that the woman in front of him was here to coax his money. Her obedience and obedience, even her current smile, were all false. He doesn't mind women trying to please him in bed, but he can't quite understand his feelings for her. He admitted that this woman is very smart and can tell at a glance what he likes. He doesn't like women who play tricks with him, but he doesn't seem to dislike this woman's tricks. After being entangled, Lu Huaiqi leaned against the bed, and Jiang Wan lit a cigarette for him. He hugged her into his arms, gently stroking her hair with one hand and holding the cigarette but with the other, taking a slow puff. After smoking, he buried his head between her neck and sniffed her unique fragrance with fascination. This aroma, as if emanating from her bones, had taken root in his heart since the first meeting. He couldn't smell it, and his heart was like scratching a cat, itchy and tormenting. "Isn't it okay to come and find me? I'll give you whatever it takes to work there." Jiang Wan knew he was talking about a bar. "We can't trouble Mr. Lu with everything." Lu Huaiqi listened to her words with inexplicable annoyance. He rubbed her chin with his fingers and asked, "What do you call me?" "Mr. Lu." "Call my name." Jiang Wan lowered her eyebrows and eyes, her tone full of obedience. "Okay. Give a shout." "Huaiqi." Lu Huaiqi's inexplicable palpitations moved for a moment, but more importantly, it was restlessness. "Can you accept your hypocrisy? You are all my girlfriend, working as a part-time worker, working as a goddamn worker. It's my joke that Lu Huaiqi can help Beijing." "Sorry." Lu Huaiqi lightly bit her collarbone and said, "There's a party on the 15th of this month, come with me." Chapter 3. Island Gathering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The gathering mentioned by Lu Huaiqi was held on a private island belonging to the second generation of wealthy individuals. Those who went there were either wealthy, either young masters or military juniors like Lu Huaiqi. When they went in a helicopter, Jiang Wan's head was almost shattered by the roar of the propellers. After getting off the plane, she took a long time to recover. In addition to a few friends of Lu Huaiqi, there are also over a dozen young girls on the island, some of whom are internet celebrities and some are not very famous actors, all wearing bikinis and with hot and sexy figures. Lu Huaiqi picked a blue and white bikini for Jiang Wan, like the blue and white stripes in Japanese anime. This bikini suits her very well, and after she changed it out, the eyes of several wealthy second-generation people on the island became straight. A man chuckled and said, "Hey, brother Lu, where did you find the girl this time? Let's play together." Lu Huaiqi put his arm around her waist, looked at the man and said, "Are you tired of living?" The man smiled a few times and left with a little celebrity in his arms. Jiang Wan has never been to such a place before, and she usually wears the most conservative swimsuit when going to the beach, so she can't let go at this time. Lu Huaiqi patted her buttocks, then called out two female celebrities and walked towards the beach. She draped a towel over her shoulder and sat on the beach chair, watching the men and women playing by the shore. Several internet celebrities are taking photos and planning to save some materials for posting on Weibo. Jiang Wan had little interest in taking photos and watched with an indifferent expression as Lu Huaiqi hugged two female celebrities and boarded a small speedboat together. The three of them wore life jackets and circled in the sea. Feeling a bit harsh from the sunlight above, Jiang Wan shrank under the sun umbrella. "Beauty, what's your name?" A voice came from behind her. Jiang Wan turned around and found a man wearing sunglasses. His upper body was bare, his bronze-colored muscles were full and sturdy, and his lower body was a pair of brown shorts, loose and casual. He looked very relaxed and casual. "Jiang Wan," she said. "My name is Zhou Lian. You look quite young, just call me Zhou Gu." "Okay. Huaiqi brought you here." Zhou Lian sat down next to her. Jiang Wan nodded and said, "Yes." "Are you an internet celebrity or an actor?" Zhou Lian asked. "None of them are." "What kind of work do you do?" Jiang Wan said, "Student, I will graduate soon." "How big is it?" 21. Zhou Lian smiled and said, "Guess how old I am." Jiang Wan squinted her eyes, as if they were sparkling gemstones illuminated by the sunlight. 28. She added, "If you guess too much, it's because you look steady, but guess too little, it's because you look young." Zhou Lian laughed and said, "It's not big or small, you guessed it very accurately." Jiang Wan also showed a cheerful and relaxed smile. Lu Huaiqi is 20.9, and his friends are likely around this age. On the other side, Lu Huaiqi got off the yacht and saw Jiang Wan and Zhou Lian chatting happily, feeling an inexplicable annoyance in his heart. He impatiently dismissed two young celebrities and walked towards Jiang Wan himself. Jiang Wan saw him coming and stood up from the beach chair, like a maid waiting for the master's command, standing with an especially devout and dignified demeanor. Lu Huaiqi looked at Jiang Wan's attitude and felt even more unnamed anger in his heart. He pulled her onto the speedboat, taught her how to operate it in a few words, and then sat down with her. "Take a lap," he said. Jiang Wan felt a little uneasy in her heart. She hesitated for a moment, wanting to refuse, but before she could say anything, she heard Lu Huaiqi say, "You came with me, you just want money. If you don't listen, why should I give you? Hurry up and take a walk." Jiang Wan was not sure if she could drive it, so she started driving it with what she had just remembered. "Accelerate," Lu Huaiqi ordered. Jiang Wan drove at maximum speed, and the splashes of water on both sides of the ship were like two walls. The cool seawater splashed on her body and face, wetting her hair, and the hair tips were wet and pressed against her cheeks. She blinked, wiped the water off her face with her arm, and stared intently at the sea ahead. Lu Huaiqi stared at her face for a while, wanting to say something, but suddenly felt an unstable center of gravity, his body tilted slightly, and then the entire speedboat flipped into the water. He floats up from the water, wipes the water on his face backward along the direction of his hair with both hands, and scolds the position of the bow. "Can you tell me if you are about to turn over?" No one came up, just an orange foam life jacket floating on the sea. He plunged into the water with one head and saw Jiang Wan sinking. He went downstream in pairs and carried her out of the water. He flipped the speedboat over, placed her on it, and pinched her nose to perform artificial respiration on her. At an unknown moment, she coughed up a mouthful of salty seawater and her red eyes woke up. "Can't swim?" asked Lu Huaiqi. Jiang Wan shook her head. "No, why didn't you say it? There is a life jacket." Lu Huaiqi twisted her waist hard, and her fair skin instantly left a mark. Jiang Wan held on to the skin he had twisted, causing her nose to ache. Lu Huaiqi drove the yacht back and sent Jiang Wan back to the resort hotel. At night, he took a popular internet celebrity to a room. Just as he took off his clothes, he felt bored and kicked the person out. He brushed open Jiang Wan's room and turned on the lights. The woman on the bed was covered in a blanket, lying on her side, her body curled up in a ball, her hands folded and hanging on the side of her face, and her phone placed next to her. He stepped forward and observed her face. The skin is very white, smooth and delicate, with two eyebrows that are neat and not too thick or too light. When you close your eyes, it seems like the whole world has become quiet. He lifted the blanket and reached out to her chest, kneading it for a while. The person on the bed let out a moan and gasp in their sleep. Suddenly, he felt the temperature was not right again and reached out to touch her forehead, which was scorching badly. He cursed softly and asked the hotel front desk for fever-reducing medicine, and fed it to her. After tossing and turning, he lost his desire and lay in bed, hugging her like a pillow. Jiang Wan felt like someone was holding her in a daze. She instinctively leaned towards him, rubbed her head affectionately, and found a comfortable spot to continue sleeping. After 2 days on the island, she had a fever for a day and a half. When she went back on the boat, she retched all the way. On Monday morning, Lu Huaiqi drove her to the entrance of the internship law firm. He lit a cigarette in the car, looked at her and said, "I'm his mother. I took you to play for 2 days, but I didn't sleep." Jiang Wan's face was full of apologies, and she was indeed too embarrassed to take the money for free. "When do you think we can make up for it?" Her tone was like that of customer service. Lu Huaiqi looked at her official appearance and angrily pressed her onto the seat, kissing her fiercely for a while. "Next weekend. I have plans for next weekend, can you?" I pushed it. Chapter 4. Driving. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Wan's current internship law firm was helped by a senior who helped her a lot during her time at school. Her original plan for this weekend was to invite him to dinner and thank him along the way, but due to Lu Huaiqi, she could only postpone this matter for 1 weekend. The weekend mentioned by Lu Huaiqi is an entire weekend. On Friday night, she had just finished work and didn't have time to change clothes before taking a taxi to the place mentioned by Lu Huaiqi. In the afternoon, she followed the teacher from the law firm to listen to a case. She was wearing a professional suit with a black waist-up design and a white shirt underneath. She unbuttoned the collar 2 times to avoid obstructing her breathing. The place mentioned by Lu Huaiqi is a road in the outer ring road, with a wide view and not many vehicles passing by at night. She was holding a file bag, her hair tied in a low ponytail, with no expression on her face, her back straight, waiting by the roadside. Not long after, a wave of sound came from far and near. 5 sports cars arrived, but she didn't know the models of the cars. They were all scissor doors. Lu Huaiqi lowered the car window and looked at her attire, saying, "Take off your coat, you're like an insurance seller." Jiang Wan took off her suit jacket, and the hem of her white shirt was neatly tucked into her waist. The buttons on the cuffs were neatly fastened, making her look meticulous and neat. Lu Huaiqi's tone was full of annoyance. "Take off like a hotel front desk, don't wear your professional uniform next time." Jiang Wan said hello. Lu Huaiqi got off the car without closing the car door or removing the key, and asked her, "Do you have a driver's license?" Have Jiang Wan's driver's license was obtained in her freshman year and she has never been on the road except for Subject 3. Lu Huaiqi said to her, "Go up and drive around." Jiang Wan shook her head and said, "I haven't driven it before, I'm afraid I might accidentally damage it for you. If you want to drive it, you can drive it." "What nonsense." Jiang Wan no longer resisted and sat in the driver's seat. Lu Huaiqi opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. The red-haired boy in the car next to him whistled and said, "Hey, Brother Lu, how can we play with women today? Is that okay with her?" Lu Huaiqi scolded him and said to Jiang Wan, "Can we win him?" "It shouldn't work." Lu Huaiqi said, "We must win, otherwise we'll throw you on that mountain and walk down on our own." Jiang Wan asked him how to drive it and what to pay attention to, and Lu Huaiqi explained it to her one by one. When the car started, she only felt a buzzing sound in her ears, making her head dizzy. The other people's cars have already flown far away, and she is still driving at a steady speed. "Jiang Wan, did you turn a deaf ear to what I said?" asked Lu Huaiqi. Jiang Wan knew he was getting impatient, and now she didn't dare to make him angry. So she took a deep breath, calmed down, and accelerated to catch up. The other few people knew she was driving and intentionally made her do it. After a while, she left the others behind and arrived at the designated location first. "I won." Jiang Wan tilted her head and looked at Lu Huaiqi in the passenger seat. She originally thought that Lu Huaiqi would give up on this, but she didn't expect him to point to a winding mountain road and say, "Drive up, drive around." Jiang Wan's eyelids twitched. It was okay for her to drive on the flat ground, but if she were to drive up the mountain, she was also afraid of accidents. She hesitated and said, "It's better not to." "Don't talk nonsense." Jiang Wan didn't take any action and silently refused him. "Hurry up, drive over," Lu Huaiqi ordered. "It's too dangerous over there, it's better not to." "I said, if you don't satisfy me, I'll throw you up the mountain and walk down on your own." Jiang Wanxin looked at the pitch-black mountain road, her hand holding the steering wheel, sweating profusely, her palms becoming sticky and slippery, and her heart pounding. "Hurry up, drive over," Lu Huaiqi urged impatiently. Jiang Wan pursed her lips and stepped on the gas pedal. The people in the other cars watched as the two of them drove towards the mountain road, and their hearts also lifted. A person called Lu Huaiqi in the car. "Brother Lu, the road over there hasn't been smooth for us during the day. Don't even talk about that girl, it's still night now. Why don't we come back? It's not easy to explain to the director if something happens." Lu Huaiqi listened to the voice on the phone, his dark eyes becoming dark and dark. He looked at Jiang Wan's calm and composed face, and said with a gloomy expression, "Today I want to see if she has the courage to open up." Jiang Wan forcefully suppressed the unease and fear in her heart and drove towards the mountain road. Lu Huaiqi curled his lips and leaned on the seat with his arms in his arms, mockingly waiting to see her perform. Suddenly, his pupils suddenly dilated. On the way up the mountain, Jiang Wan drove into a tree on the roadside. Chapter 5. Hospitals. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In a senior ward of Chang'an District Central Hospital. Lu Huaiqi had a piece of gauze on his face and stood in front of the hospital bed, his eyebrows furrowed tightly, as he looked down at the young woman lying in bed. The woman had a bandage wrapped around her forehead, with blood oozing faintly. Her arms were cast in plaster, and her eyes looked at him apologetically. "Take it easy, you think I can't see that you hit on purpose." Jiang Wan apologized repeatedly. She deliberately bumped into it. Compared to going up the mountain, she would rather have this kind of consequence than at least risking her life. If Lu Huaiqi was offended, he would at most retaliate against himself. If it were him who had an accident, her family would probably be unable to avoid it. "Do you know how much it cost me to fix the car?" Lu Huaiqi sat down by the bed and pinched her thigh. "I can't even sleep with you for half a month." Jiang Wan shrank her legs in pain, and these days she has also noticed that Lu Huaiqi has a strange temper and a tendency to pinch people. Being with him, her thighs and buttocks would suddenly be pinched by him. She really finds it difficult to understand the quirks of a 30-year-old man like Lu Huaiqi. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lu, if you're willing," she said with full apologies, her tone resembling that of a customer service representative from a certain company. "What's your name?" "Sorry Huaiqi, if you are willing, I can use the service to repay the losses caused to you in installments. If you are not willing, I will find a solution." Upon hearing this, Lu Huaiqi's eyes sank and he reached out to pinch her neck. Jiang Wan's face instantly turned red, her breathing became extremely difficult, but her eyes remained calm, without any fear. She knew that Lu Huaiqi wouldn't strangle her because he wasn't tired of it yet. "Find a way. What do you think, go sleep with another man?" Watching her face gradually turn reddish-brown and then gradually turn black, he let go of her. Jiang Wan placed one hand on the edge of the bed, lowered her head, and coughed violently. After a while, her face calmed down before returning to normal. "Jiang Wan, can you accept your hypocritical face for me? Are you only interested in money?" Jiang Wan looked at him and smiled, "You are a customer, I regard you as God." Lu Huaiqi was so angry that he spoke in a knot. With a black face, he stripped off her clothes and disregarded her arm in plaster, pressing her once. Jiang Wan is very obedient. She should pant and shout, and her voice sounds better than that of Japanese voice actors. She knows how to please this man. Lu Huaiqi admits to enjoying Jiang Wan's obedience and flattery. He likes obedient women, but every time he sees her eyes, he knows she's pretending. Those clear and purposeful eyes gave him a feeling of being deceived. Her polite attitude and distant tone made him feel like he had spent money to buy a talking inflatable doll, but he was obsessed with her body, like his addiction to smoking. If he didn't take two when he had nothing to do, his heart would itch. "Remember, you owe me. If you dare to find another man in the middle, I will make you disappear from this world," said Lu Huaiqi, with a fierce glint in his eyes, like a poised black panther that could tear apart its prey at any moment. Lu Huaiqi has no special requirements for sex, and he doesn't care if his partner has slept with anyone else. But Jiang Wan is the only one he cannot tolerate. The thought of her having sex with another man and then turning around to cheat him out of money made him extremely nauseous. Jiang Wan shivered, and the sweat on her forehead, which had flowed out from exercise, gradually evaporated and disappeared. Make someone disappear, she knows that Lu Huaiqi can do it. It is precisely because she studied law that she became more aware of the law, which is the law of ordinary people, not the law of people like Lu Huaiqi. She dare not challenge absolute power with her limited knowledge from textbooks. At this moment, she suddenly regretted provoking him, and immediately denied her thoughts. She knew that her appearance and figure were not popular in this circle, and she couldn't let go in bed, so it wasn't something that those bosses liked at all. Bosses are not foolish. Even if they have money and poor service, they will not be willing to pay the bill. No one would give her charity for no reason just because she was treating her father's illness. She has also heard that many bosses have a special habit of playing with people half to death in bed, and only then can they get one worth 8,000 yuan. Compared to that, Lu Huaiqi's betting is relatively good. Not long after Lu Huaiqi left, another message came from the mobile banking. He made people transfer 10,000. Jiang Wan looked at the message and then called Li Fun, "Hello, Mom, how is my dad? The doctor said there's been some improvement, thanks to the money you sent me. Xiao Wan, I checked online and found that your school's scholarships don't even have that much money. Can you tell Mom, where did you get all this money? A portion of it is scholarships. I followed the teachers from the law firm to work on cases, and the teachers gave me a portion. I also work on weekends. The consumption in Beijing is high, and the salary is also high. That little money is not a big deal here. Don't worry, do you? Okay, Mom's afraid you'll do something foolish. Your younger brother is going to take the high school entrance exam recently, and the teacher said he has a chance to attend our city's #1 middle school. When it comes to her son, Li Fun's voice also becomes comforted. Although their family has little money, now the father is ill, but fortunately both children are very competitive, and they don't have to fuck with dim sum in school. Jiang Wan also smiled and said, "That's good. Xiaochen will definitely pass the exam. You should also take good care of your health in the hospital and don't exhaust yourself." Line. She stayed in the hospital for over a day and left on Sunday afternoon. The plaster on the hand needs at least 4 weeks to be removed, but fortunately it is on the left hand and will not affect normal daily life and self-care. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, the director of the law firm called her. "Xiao Wan, I heard about your hospitalization. How is your situation?" "It's not very serious, there's a slight fracture in the left arm." "Well, we've been dealing with a lot of affairs at our law firm lately. If it's not convenient for you to come, why don't you rest at home? I'll let Xiao Lu take over your work, and we'll talk about the rest when you're better." Jiang Wan's heart suddenly twitched, as if being tightly grasped and twisted twice by one hand, and the suffocation spread from her heart to every cell in her body. It is difficult to find an internship law firm in Beijing, and the competition is particularly fierce. She attaches great importance to the opportunity to intern at this law firm. If the director of the law firm can be satisfied, she can have a place in her internship law firm after graduation. As long as she interns for a year, she can obtain a practice certificate. Xiao Wan. The director saw that she was silent and tentatively called out to her. Jiang Wan took a heavy breath and tried to calm her tone. "I understand, Director." The director's words were very tactful. In Beijing, no law firm would be willing to have a senior intern who cannot work for a consecutive month. Chapter 6. Coffee Shop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the fracture, Jiang Wan couldn't go to work at both the bar and the law firm. Jiang Wan didn't want to wait for her arm to recover without doing anything. Although Lu Huaiqi gave her enough money, she didn't want to just use the money in her card for everything. To put it simply, it is the last bit of self-esteem that is causing trouble. What Lu Huaiqi said to her was absolutely right. She was indeed hypocritical, but compared to this, she couldn't overcome that hurdle in her heart. She contacted several part-time jobs, but they were reluctant to use her even when they saw her wearing a bandage. In the end, a cafe near the school allowed her to stay in the shop, but her salary would be reduced by 1/3. This is also reasonable, after all, she has limited mobility. Lu Huaiqi has not contacted Jiang Wan since he left the hospital last time. During this time, every night he couldn't help but start thinking about her eyes, wanting to find her, thinking about her body, thinking about her voice, thinking about the fragrance on his body. But when he remembered her irritating attitude, he didn't want to give her too much face. He has had countless girlfriends before, but he has never seen her like that. He was both acting and standing, both wanting and wanting, which made him nauseous. But without looking for her, I feel uncomfortable in my heart. So he found another female student from a university who was also studying law, younger and purer than Jiang Wan. He parked his car on the roadside and saw a figure wearing a white dress at the entrance of the campus. He impatiently honked the horn twice. The girl ran across the road and opened the car door. "Mr. Lu. Call it by name." "Huaiqi." "Damn it, it's not that smell." Lu Huaiqi impatiently lit a cigarette and said to the girl, "It's better not to scream." The girl looked carefully at him, feeling uneasy and afraid that he might suddenly get angry. Lu Huaiqi was wearing a white shirt today, and the tie around his neck was pulled in a strange shape by him. The button on the collar was open, revealing his collarbone and tight chest. He opened the car window and watched the people coming and going on Campus A, smoking silently. The girl in the passenger seat dared not disturb him, lowered her head and silently looked at the backs of her overlapping hands. Suddenly, Lu Huaiqi saw a figure with an arm in plaster through the glass of a coffee shop. He extinguished his cigarette and said to the girl, "You go back." After finishing speaking, he got off the car and strode to the coffee shop. Jiang Wan didn't expect to see Lu Huaiqi at this 10 yuan coffee shop. She stood in front of the counter, operating the coffee machine. After a buzzing sound, she called out a number. Lu Huaiqi approached her, picked up his coffee cup without saying a word, and took a sip. "It's so hard to swallow that it's hard to swallow," he said to Jiang Wan. "If you break your arm, you can't stay at home honestly. Stop doing it. How much does the store charge you?" His voice caught the attention of the customers in the store, and they all began to look towards the two of them. "If Mr. Lu has anything to do, you can talk to me after work," Jiang Wan said. Lu Huaiqi sat in the seat of the store with a gloomy face. The noisy pop music in the store made him want to leave several times, but he finally held back. He looked at the orderly figure of the counter in plaster, feeling increasingly impatient. Finally, just as he was about to leave, Jiang Wan and another part-time coffee girl changed shifts. Lu Huaiqi tugged at Jiang Wan's wrist and pulled her into the car. "You can't stay home if your his mother hand is broken," he demanded. "Mr. Lu, this is my own business." Upon seeing her unfamiliar attitude, Lu Huaiqi's anger immediately ignited. He pulled out a bank card from his folder and threw it onto her. "Stop working. How much money can you make there? The money here is enough for you to spend, and you can't make money even if you work for 10 years. Jiang Wan covered her face with tears in her eyes. She held back her tears and slowly placed the card on the armrest of the car. "Sorry." Lu Huaiqi was so angry that he pinched her chin and said, "Jiang Wan, I've given you a few more cents because of your pitiful behavior. Are you so proud that you really consider yourself a princess queen?" Jiang Wan and he looked at each other, their eyes filled with fear, but they didn't say anything. Lu Huaiqi took her to the hotel, and as soon as he entered, he pushed her onto the bed, rudely starting to pull at her clothes. "Aren't you studying law? Go sue me for rape." Jiang Wan did not resist him. She dared not provoke him completely, but the huge pain in her arm made her eyebrows furrow, and beads of sweat covered her forehead. She looked painfully and covered her left arm. Lu Huaiqi's heart tightened and he stopped moving. He frowned and said, "Do you know if your arm hurts?" Jiang Wan's face was pale, her lips trembling and unable to speak. Lu Huaiqi picked her up in the car and drove towards the hospital. When he arrived at the intersection, the red light happened to light up. He impatiently honked his horn, bypassed the vehicles in front, and ran straight through. Chapter 7. Chicken. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After that day, Jiang Wan's plaster was reapplied. In order to prevent her from working in plaster after going out, Lu Huaiqi hired 2 people specifically to watch her recover in the hospital, similar to illegal detention. Jiang Wan couldn't leave, so she had to accept her fate to be raised in the hospital. Her arms healed quickly, and she could go out early to find a new internship unit. She stayed in the hospital for over a month before removing the plaster. At first, I was a bit uncomfortable and felt my left arm was weak and sore, but I quickly adapted to it. The first thing she did when she was discharged was to call the senior student. She had always said to invite him to dinner before, but later it was delayed due to various reasons. This matter remained unresolved in her heart, and she always felt uncomfortable. The two of them made an appointment at a barbecue stall at the end of a snack street. The storefront of this barbecue restaurant is not very large, which may seem inconspicuous from the outside, but those who have been in Beijing for a long time know that this one is the best in Chang'an district. When Jiang Wan was in her freshman and sophomore years, she often came here with friends to have barbecue and drink some beer. At that time, her father had not yet fallen ill, and the family was considered a well-off family with little money and nothing short of anything. At that time, she always fantasized about becoming a dominant figure, guarding the warmth and coldness of the world, and upholding fairness and justice. Now, she couldn't bear to see what she was doing. Knowing the law and breaking it, trading money in sex. The senior she was with was named Li Songjin, who was 2 years older than her. They also met during a college entrepreneurship competition. After ordering, the two of them ordered beer again and drank it for a while. "Why didn't you study for graduate school?" Li Song asked her today. "I don't want to read anymore, I want to work earlier." Jiang Wan was originally sponsored for graduate studies, but later her father had an accident and was in a hurry to use the money. All her relatives and friends had borrowed money, and she owed a lot of debt. In addition, the tuition fees for graduate studies were not cheap, so she gave up. "Can you go to that law firm before?" Li Songjin asked again. Jiang Wan smiled bitterly and said, "My arm has been broken for almost 2 months, someone has already replaced me." She doesn't blame the law firm either. After all, she can't expect others to wait for her all the time, and the law firm also needs to eat. Li Songjin took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to her, saying, "This is a lawyer I know. They are looking for an intern in their office recently. Otherwise, you can come back and consult with him." Jiang Wan took it over and smiled, saying, "Okay, I owe you another favor." Li Songjin laughed and said, "It's also appropriate for direct junior students to help each other." After speaking, he asked, "What's wrong with your arm? Why did it suddenly break?" "I accidentally fell down the stairs." Because she wanted to conceal the source of Li Fen's money, Jiang Wan has recently developed the ability to lie and not make drafts. The two of them chatted for a while, from their career plans to their frustrations at work, without noticing that a silver Land Rover was parked across the road. Zhou Lian sat in the passenger seat, looking at the men and women chatting freely at the roadside stall, and said in confusion, "Huaiqi, that girl looks quite similar to the one we brought to the island last time." Lu Huaiqi's eyes were sinister, staring fixedly in that direction, and a displeased expression appeared on his sharp and angular face. He knew that this was the true side of that woman, and in front of him, even her smile was fake, carefully designed. He doesn't understand. The money he gave her can't be found at this price in the whole city of Beijing. What face does she have to smile sincerely at him? As the man and woman across from him stood up to pay the bill and planned to leave, he said to Zhou Lian, "Go down." Zhou Lian didn't dare to provoke him even though he looked unhappy, so he opened the car door and got off the car. Lu Huaiqi honked the horn, and Jiang Wan across from him looked over. Jiang Wan said to Li Songjin, "Sorry, I have a friend here." Li Songjin glanced at the man in the road tiger, then at the license plate number, starting with the military name. Intuition told him that Jiang Wan and this man were not just ordinary friends. "Well, I'll go back first." "Be careful yourself," he said. After Li Song left, Jiang Wan came to the front of the Land Rover car. Zhou Lian hid by the roadside smoking and greeted her with a smile. Lu Huaiqi looked at her smile and became even more angry. He ordered, "Get in the car." Jiang Wan opened the car door and sat down. "Where is home?" Jiang Wan provided the address, and Lu Huaiqi sent her over. The single room she rented is in an old neighborhood. Lu Huaiqi frowned from the moment he stepped into the entrance of the community. After arriving at her house, she poured him a glass of water. "Do you live in this place?" Lu Huaiqi looked at the 15 square meter small house in front of him with disdain. He felt that he couldn't even stretch his hands and feet, and he had to bend over to avoid touching the door frame when entering. However, although the room is small, it is decorated cleanly and warmly. The sheets and duvet covers are light pink, with white rabbit heads printed on them. There is also an alpaca doll placed at the head of the bed. The carpet was laid on the ground, and he could tell at a glance that it was cheap goods from the second-hand market, but it was inexplicably harmonious here. There is no sofa in the room, only a single desk facing the window, filled with books related to laws and regulations. On the wall facing the bed, there is a cheap projection device that is just right for watching TV shows. Jiang Wan pointed to the bed and said to him, "The place is not big, you can just sit down." He sat up with a strange feeling in his heart. He looked at her, his hand unconsciously wanting to reach into his pocket for a cigarette, hesitated for a moment, and then gave up. "Come here." Jiang Wan sat on his lap, with a faint smile on her face that did not penetrate into her eyes. Lu Huaiqi looked at her pretending and started to get angry again, but at this moment his desire had the upper hand. He pressed her onto the bed, rubbed her buttocks for a while, and asked, "Do you have a condom?" "No." "Remember to take your medicine." Jiang Wan hasn't been touched by Lu Huaiqi in the hospital for over a month, and during that time, he always felt unhappy even when he looked for someone else. He even suspected that she had put marijuana and opium in her body, making him unable to stop every time and savoring the essence. He lay on her back, his face pressed against her ear, "Call me to listen." She suppressed her breath and whispered, "No, It's not very soundproof. Didn't you say you couldn't go find another man? Eat. Have a meal. He slapped her buttocks twice, as if venting or punishing. Jiang Wan felt pain from eating and couldn't help it. You his mother mean it? No, I'm sorry. Lu Huaiqi was so angry that he slapped her twice again. His mother, you should act like a customer service person at this time, and be honest with him. He did it twice, and after finishing, he lay on her bed, playing back and forth with the alpaca doll in one hand, watching her tidy up the mess inside the house. She opened the window to ventilate, and the musk scent in the room gradually faded. She was naked, her body resembling a perfect sculpture, with a harmonious proportion from her hips to her chest, and every curve perfectly fitting his aesthetic standards. "There are 12 more times," Jiang Wan said. "What?" "I owe you a total of 15 times. Lu Huaiqi remembered the half-month she talked about that day, but she didn't expect to remember it every time, and for a moment, her anger ignited again. He asked with a gloomy face, "What, you said 15 times is 15 times. Do you think 15 times is enough to pay off?" Jiang Wan didn't get angry with him, but said very logically, "How many times do you think it's appropriate?" "Jiang Wan, don't be shameless," his mother. "Mr. Lu, Huaiqi, I think we have a relationship where we each take what we need. It's better to explain some things clearly about the price." In Jiang Wan's view, the relationship between getting money every time she sleeps is simple and clear. But owing him made her feel very restricted and unable to escape at any time. Lu Huaiqi was extremely angry and laughed back. He stood up and pinched Jiang Wan's chin. "Do you really consider yourself a chicken? Let's go, I'll take you to see how chickens serve the Gold Lord. You're so eager to learn." Chapter 8. Bets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After seeing Li Songjin that day, Jiang Wan called the lawyer on the business card that Li Songjin gave her. The other party asked her to submit her resume and informed her to go for an interview. She has internship experience, and coupled with the fact that the other party happens to have a shortage of people in their workplace, the interview went smoothly. She has a job again, and with her certificate coming down soon, she has been in a good mood lately. Although intern lawyers work hard and their salaries are not high, as long as they are willing to endure and work hard, they can always stand out. And this industry, like doctors, has a natural age advantage. Generally speaking, the older you get, the more popular you are, and the more customers trust you. A few days ago, Li Fan also called her and said that her father was out of danger. For her, everything seems to be moving in a positive direction. After that day, Lu Huaiqi never contacted her, nor did she contact her, nor did she call him. Since then, she has noticed that he has a strange temper. To be honest, she doesn't want to go find him when she's free. During the May Day holiday, the law firm took a few days off. Jiang Wan had originally planned to organize some materials at home, so that when she returned to the law firm after the holiday, there wouldn't be too many work tasks piled up. On the morning of the first day of the holiday, Lu Huaiqi called her and asked her to go to a car exhibition center. There is a car exhibition at the exhibition center, which is about new energy vehicles. The organizer is a friend of Lu Huaiqi and has invited many models to come over. When Jiang Wan went, the organizer was preparing and the exhibition had not yet begun. After she arrived, Lu Huaiqi pushed her to a young man and said to him, "How about this?" The man's name is Su Qinsang, and he is the president of an automobile company. He looked at Jiang Wan for a while and said, "She is smooth and beautiful, but her height is almost the same." Jiang Wan is less than 1.7 meters tall, and the models present are all long-legged beauties who are almost 1.8 meters tall. Lu Huaiqi gave her a set of car model clothes and impatiently urged her, "Go and change your clothes." Jiang Wan went to the fitting room and changed into that set of clothes, which fit very well. This outfit has only a few more pieces of fabric than a bikini, with a neck strap on the upper body and a short skirt on the lower body that extends to the thigh, all with glitter on top. However, wearing it on her doesn't look tacky. The car exhibition center is not a beach, and Jiang Wan is not a professional model. Dressed like this, she inevitably feels a bit ashamed. After hesitating in the fitting room for a while, she walked out with a hint of embarrassment. At the moment when Lu Huaiqi saw her come out, his restlessness couldn't be suppressed. He said, "Why didn't you die inside?" Thinking of what she had done these days, he was so angry that he wanted to strangle her. He had never seen such an unscrupulous woman, pleasing him in bed, lifting her pants like a jade woman, pretending to be dead. Many women want to be involved with him, and her business attitude makes him nauseous. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed he became. With a cold face, he ordered, "Go show it to Su Qinsang." When Jiang Wan approached Su Qinsang, his eyes lit up and he immediately asked other car models to replace them with high heels that were a few centimeters lower, and also found a pair of hateful high heels for her. After everything was ready, the manager arranged for a group of models to take photos on the runway. Lu Huaiqi stopped Jiang Wan and did not let her go up. Su Qinsang didn't understand what Lu Huaiqi meant and asked, "The formation has been arranged, why aren't we allowed to go again?" "Let me show you, I didn't say I'll take a photo of you." Lu Huaiqi held a cigarette in his finger and hugged Jiang Wan's waist, his face cold and smelly. "You." Su Qinsang smiled helplessly, unsure of what to say. At that moment, the exhibition started to prevent her from attending. Su Qinsang asked again. Lu Huaiqi said, "Ask her yourself." Su Qinsang is a businessman who speaks politely. He said to Jiang Wan, "This outfit shines brightly on Miss Jiang. If Miss Jiang is willing, our company is willing to hire you as a temporary model, with the same salary as other models." Lu Huaiqi took a puff of smoke and stared at Jiang Wan with a pair of dark eyes. "How's it going? Are you satisfied with the price Mr. Su offered? Are you going?" Chapter 9. Pregnancy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Wan called the lawyer on the business card Li Song gave her today, and the other party asked her to submit her resume and informed her to go for an interview. She has internship experience, and coupled with the fact that the other party happens to have a shortage of people in their workplace, the interview went smoothly. She has a job again, and with her certificate coming down soon, she has been in a good mood lately. Although intern lawyers work hard and their salaries are not high, as long as they are willing to endure and work hard, they can always stand out. And this industry, like doctors, has a natural age advantage. Generally speaking, the older you get, the more popular you are, and the more customers trust you. A few days ago, Li Fan also called her and said that her father was out of danger. For her, everything seems to be moving in a positive direction, except for Lu Huaiqi. Since leaving that promiscuous club that day, Lu Huaiqi has never contacted her or contacted her. She knew he had a strange temper and might make some outrageous demands on her again at some point, so the car model suit he gave her has been kept at home. During the May Day holiday, the law firm took a few days off. Jiang Wan had originally planned to organize some materials at home, so that when she returned to the law firm after the holiday, there wouldn't be too many work tasks piled up. On the morning of the first day of the holiday, Lu Huaiqi called her and asked her to bring a model car suit to a car exhibition center. There is a car exhibition at the exhibition center, which is about new energy vehicles. The organizer is a friend of Lu Huaiqi and has invited many models to come over. When Jiang Wan went, the organizer was preparing and the exhibition had not yet begun. After she arrived, Lu Huaiqi pushed her to a young man and said to him, "How about this?" The man's name is Su Qinsang, and he is the president of an automobile company. He looked at Jiang Wan for a while and said, "She is smooth and beautiful, but her height is almost the same." Jiang Wan is less than 1.7 meters tall, and the models present are all long-legged beauties who are almost 1.8 meters tall. "She has a better figure than the models you hired," Lu Huaiqi impatiently urged Jiang Wan, "Go and change your clothes." Jiang Wan went to the fitting room and changed into that set of clothes, which fit very well. This outfit has only a few more pieces of fabric than a bikini. The upper body has a neck strap, only covering the chest. The short skirt on the lower body just covers the buttocks, with glitter on top, but wearing it on her doesn't look tacky. The car exhibition center is not a beach, and Jiang Wan is not a professional model. Dressed like this, she inevitably feels a bit ashamed. After hesitating in the fitting room for a while, she walked out with a hint of embarrassment. At the moment when Lu Huaiqi saw her come out, his restlessness couldn't be suppressed. He said, "Why didn't you die inside?" Thinking of what she had done these days, he was so angry that he wanted to strangle her. He had never seen such an unscrupulous woman before. When she was short of money, she would come to please him, put on her pants, and act like a jade girl, pretending to be dead. He didn't mind intentionally driving his car up a tree, but instead she calculated it herself and wished to distance herself from him. Many women want to be involved with him, and her business attitude makes him nauseous. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed he became. With a cold face, he ordered, "Go show it to Su Qinsang." When Jiang Wan approached Su Qinsang, his eyes lit up and he immediately asked other car models to replace them with high heels that were a few centimeters lower, and also found a pair of hateful high heels for her. After everything was ready, the manager arranged for a group of models to take photos on the runway. Lu Huaiqi stopped Jiang Wan and did not let her go up. Su Qinsang didn't understand what Lu Huaiqi meant and asked, "The formation has been arranged, why aren't we allowed to go again?" "Let me show you, I didn't say I'll take a photo of you." Lu Huaiqi held a cigarette in his finger and hugged Jiang Wan's waist, his face cold and smelly. "You." Su Qinsang smiled helplessly, unsure of what to say. At that moment, the exhibition started to prevent her from attending. Su Qinsang asked again. Lu Huaiqi said, "Ask her yourself." Su Qinsang is a businessman who speaks politely. He said to Jiang Wan, "This outfit shines brightly on Miss Jiang. If Miss Jiang is willing, our company is willing to hire you as a temporary model, with the same salary as other models." Lu Huaiqi took a puff of smoke and stared at Jiang Wan with a pair of dark eyes. "How's it going? Are you satisfied with the price Mr. Su offered? Are you going?" Jiang Wan's limbs were a bit stiff, and she slightly straightened her back. She knew he was digging a hole for herself again, and she thought quickly. Then, with a standardized smile on her lips, she said, "You two can arrange it." Lu Huaiqi took a heavy smoke and said, "Are you his mother Tai Chi major? Can you be a bit assertive?" Su Qinsang looked at Lu Huaiqi and said, "How's it going? She can't even walk steadily in these shoes, and still expect her to promote and showcase your cars to you." Su Qinsang smiled and said, "Okay, are you showing off with us? Speak less if you don't know how to speak." Lu Huaiqi extinguished the smoke, finished speaking, and walked away with Jiang Wan in his arms. When he walked to the entrance of the exhibition center, he saw people waiting outside for the auto show to start. He frowned and took off his coat. Put it on. His coat was a bit long for Jiang Wan, just enough to cover her buttocks, and the modeling outfit on her was also of this length, as if she wasn't wearing it in her lower body. He stared at her for a while, angry and irritable. He roughly took off his coat from her, tied it around her waist, and then walked out with his arms around her shoulders. His car was parked in a parking space at the entrance of the exhibition, with a license plate starting with a military name. No nearby cars dared to touch it, and the surrounding parking spaces were all empty. Jiang Wan got into the car, covered her coat on her lap, and asked him, "Can I get it once?" "Jiang Wan, don't challenge my bottom line. You think I won't move you, do you?" Lu Huaiqi grabbed her neck as he prepared to start the car. Watching her face turn red, he tightened his heart and let go of her again. "Can you stop always putting on an indifferent and stinky face? You don't even know how to struggle to strangle yourself." He couldn't stand her and originally planned to let her go to the exhibition to accompany him and humiliate her, but he saw her wearing clothes and came out feeling uncomfortable. He angrily stepped on the gas pedal and crashed into a hotel on the 61st floor of the Trade Building, which is the tallest hotel in Beijing. He opened a room, threw Jiang Wan onto the bed, and took a shower himself. Jiang Wan stood up from the bed, rubbed her wrist that had just been scratched red by him, and looked around. The three walls are all big French window, with white clouds floating outside, as if you can touch them with your hand. She felt dizzy and decided to close the curtains. She was trembling, and as soon as she pulled a curtain, Lu Huaiqi's voice rang from behind her, afraid of heights. Lu Huaiqi laughed and pressed her against the window, forcing her to look down. Jiang Wan looked down at the slightly deformed space, feeling that she would fall in the next second, and her legs were so weak that she couldn't stand up. Lu Huaiqi seemed to have discovered something fun and pressed her against the glass, starting to play with her buttocks. Jiang Wan realized his intention and her emotions were a bit shattered. Her voice and face were as pale as before. "Can you go to bed?" The first time he saw a look of fear in her eyes, Lu Huaiqi became very excited. He seemed to have not heard her words and continued his hand movements. He then held on to the window for half an hour. Watching her crying with tears all over her face, he felt relieved and threw her onto the bed, then bullied her again. After finishing, he lit a cigarette and let her lie in his arms. He caressed her trembling body and squinted his eyes, thinking about how to punish her next time. Jiang Wan took a long time to recover, still afraid to look at the windows around her. She gritted her teeth and looked up at the man next to her. "There are still 10 more times." Lu Huaiqi couldn't help but ask, "Are you so unwilling to owe me?" Jiang Wan shook her head and said, "No one wants to owe. Do you think giving me a few sleeps is enough to fix my car? If you're willing, that's enough." Jiang Wan naturally knew that objectively speaking, what Lu Huaiqi gave was much more than what she had put in, but if he was willing to give, she didn't need to be paid the same as him. Ultimately, whether something is worth it or not depends on how people think. It's just like the first time Lu Huaiqi asked her how much she wanted, and she said she asked him to look at it. He gave too much, so naturally he was satisfied. "You are the one who has slept the most in my life." Lu Huaiqi lowered his head and took a bite on her shoulder, which was not too heavy or too light. It broke the skin and oozed some blood. At this moment, his phone placed by the bedside rang. He glanced at the caller ID and then at Jiang Wan, who was sleeping with her eyes narrowed, feeling inexplicably guilty. After hesitating for a moment, he pressed the connect button. A girl's voice came over the phone. It was the A-year-old female college student. "Mr. Lu, I'm pregnant for over 2 months now." Upon hearing this, Jiang Wan couldn't help but look sideways, her cold eyes fixed on Lu Huaiqi, wanting to see his reaction. "Be good, let manager Lu accompany you to the hospital for a check. Up. If you want anything, let manager Lu know and ask him to buy it for you. Jiang Wan lowered her eyes, as expected. Hanging up the phone, Lu Huaiqi lowered his head and looked at Jiang Wan. His face was a bit uncomfortable, and it didn't match the gentle voice he had just spoken with. Jiang Wan tilted her small face and smiled at him. You can rest assured that I have never forgotten to take my medicine and will not leave any future troubles. Lu Huaiqi knew that she was deliberately making fun of her, and with a black face, she flipped her body over and slapped her buttocks heavily. Chapter 10. Scenic Area. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the second day of the holiday, Lu Huaiqi drove Jiang Wan to the mountains. The mountain we went to is a scenic spot near Beijing. Jiang Wan University doesn't go out for tourism and has never been to this place before. During the May Day holiday, there are many tourists on the mountain who enter through the road behind the mountain to avoid overcrowding. Accompanying him were Zhou Lian and the former owner of the small island, named Chen Yunting. Both of them brought a female college student together, one 18 named Yang Xinxin, and the other 19 named Xia Rou, both of whom were freshmen. Jiang Wan understood very well that wealthy men like Zhou Lian and Chen Yunting, who were around 30 years old, had a great attraction to young girls. They were experienced and spent a lot of time trying to coax people, but they got tired of it quickly and would forget it in the blink of an eye. Of course, it also includes Lu Huaiqi, who is essentially no different from these two friends. Along the way, Zhou Lian and the two girls led by Chen Yunting chatted and took many photos. They also wanted to take selfies with Jiang Wan. Jiang Wan politely declined them because she didn't really enjoy taking photos. Lu Huaiqi watched as the two girls were making a fuss, but Jiang Wan looked lethargic as if she was forced to follow and felt angry. He pointed in the direction of the two girls and said to Jiang Wan, "You, go take a photo." Jiang Wan took out her phone and asked, "How many do you need?" Lu Huaiqi wanted to drop her phone. "Don't come back until you've captured enough GB of memory," he added, "I need to check. If you don't capture it properly, you'll capture 2 more GB. Jiang Wan smiled and said, "Okay." As Jiang Wan walked towards Yang Xinxin and Xia Rou, Chen Yunting couldn't help but ask, "Huaiqi, this girl has been with you for quite some time, hasn't she? She's really that good?" "Damn it," Lu Huaiqi cursed. Zhou Lian smiled and said, "Xiaozuiqing, Xinxin is the same." Lu Huaiqi glanced at him and scolded, "You are so hot these 2 days. You will see what you are talking about in a few days." Jiang Wan is not very fond of taking photos and her photography skills are relatively average, but when Lu Huaiqi said so, she followed suit. She first retorted and took a few selfies, then asked Yang Xinxin and Xia Rou, 2 girls, to help her take a few full-body photos. Feeling it was almost done, she took her phone and went back. AG can store 300 to 1,000 photos, and she's not foolish enough to think that Lu Huaiqi really asked her to take so many photos, just handle it casually. She knew that he was just looking at the girls his friends were taking pictures with great enthusiasm, feeling embarrassed, so he let her go. She approached Lu Huaiqi with her phone and said, "I've taken the picture. Do you think it's a his mother job?" Lu Huaiqi said this, but still took her cell phone one by one and turned it over. "Just like a zombie, you can't move a bit." He opened WeChat, searched for a contact person, added it, and took out his own phone to click through. I also sent the photos on Jiang Wan's phone one by one. After finishing these things, he spoke softly and said, "Don't think about turning back and deleting my WeChat while I'm not around. If I find out, take a look at any law firm in Beijing that dares to take you." Jiang Wan clenched her fist, with a still warm smile on her face. "Okay," she said, "those who are aware of current affairs will not fight against the powerful." Lu Huaiqi was in a good mood and didn't mind her hypocritical expression. He drove her to a scenic spot. Jiang Wan got off the car and followed him for a few steps before understanding why he had to bring herself to the mountains. "In front of us is a 100-meter glass walkway, which lies between 2 hills. Walk over, Lu Huaiqi ordered. Jiang Wan took 2 steps back. Lu Huaiqi impatiently urged her, hurry up. Jiang Wan looked at the emerald green valley under her feet, feeling dizzy and her face turned pale. She carefully supported the handrail on one side of the boardwalk, her feet weighing 1,000 pounds. She turned to look at Lu Huaiqi and asked, can we not leave? In 5 minutes, if you can't walk over, I'll throw you to the top of the mountain and you'll go down by yourself. Jiang Wan struggled to lift her feet, trembling as she walked step by step. She tried to look ahead as much as possible without paying attention to her feet. When she reached the middle of the boardwalk, she couldn't help but lower her head and take a look, then fell down and sat down on the boardwalk. People who are afraid of heights understand how horrible the glass walkway is. Among the tourists accompanying her, there was a girl who, like her, was so frightened that she sat on the boardwalk and collapsed. Fortunately, her boyfriend was by her side, helped her up, comforted her for a while, and the two walked hand in hand. Jiang Wan sat on the boardwalk, adjusting her breathing for a while and wanting to stand up, but her legs were weak and her bones seemed to have been pulled away. Sister, do you need any help? A voice came from above. Jiang Wan looked up and found a young boy who looked like a college student. He wore white T-dot shirts, had delicate features, was sunny and handsome, and carried a bag, full of energy. Jiang Wan nodded at him and said, "Excuse me." The boy helped her up, and her hand tightly grabbed the armrest again. The boy saw that she was really scared, so he kept following her, talking to her, and diverting her attention. "Sister, why did you come by yourself? Didn't anyone come with you?" Jiang Wansong's lips turned white and she said, "I came with my friends, they're somewhere else." "Sister, are you a student?" "Well, senior year, a year old." "Still a senior, I'm a freshman." "My name is Gu Nanha." "What's your name, sister?" "My name is Jiang Wan." "What is Jiang wants you as major?" "Law." Gu Nanha exclaimed in surprise, "Me too." As soon as they spoke, they arrived at the opposite side of the boardwalk. Jiang Wan bid farewell to Gu Nanha and lowered her head to notice that her phone had vibrated. It is news inspired by Lu Huaiqi. Walking back.